Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. The next Wasteless World Talks are here with Kevin and Bill. And today we have a special term. It is omnibus. And I would like to ask Kevin first, because it was his proposal after last week we talked about bus. Kevin told us what is omnibus, but let's make the same like we do every time. So if you close your eyes and you hear the term omnibus, what came to your mind?
Omnibus is the old word for bus. 100 years ago, we didn't catch buses, we called omnibuses. And the word omnibus comes from Latin, and it means for all, which is such a lovely name for a bus.
It is.
For public transport.
It is. So what about you, Abel?
This word is, I'm not that familiar with this word. The only one that I can think of is in the U.S. when the Congress is going to pass pass a bill that has provisions for many different parties. It's not simply a military spending bill. It's not simply a farm bill. It is everything bill, and so they call it an omnibus.
I have read
Which
about
I guess makes this. I guess that's the same thing, right? It's for all. It's a collection of many things.
I have shortly spent the time on Wikipedia, and it's really if something is containing more content in one direction, let's call it so, they call it omnibus, and it exists even in the computer language and so on. But it's quite interesting, especially with the connection with the bus itself. And as usually, I have a noon discussion. We discussed the same topic, and it turned into discussion about artificial intelligence generally, because it should be for all. At least it is sold as something for all. I am not sure about.
I think artificial intelligence is for all that owns it and nothing else.
I think it is. I have a very similar opinion. I think that it is for few to enslave all. Because if they all will get addicted, and we generally came to these terms through then natural intelligence and similar stuff. And we discussed the artificial intelligence several times before, and just today happened something very strange to me. Not that AI talked to me, that's common, but I read a post by one Czech logistician. I know him. He's a really experienced guy in our age. He's really great. And he wrote a post which started with a sentence, "Logistic cannot exist without AI and cloud computing." He is specialist in digital twins for logistic and production. So he's doing that for a long time. But at the same time, I know he is aware, or at least he was aware of the fact that logistic was here thousands of years before AI and anything else. And from his post, and I commented in the way, it was in Czech language, so I commented in a way that I am very sorry that he forgot about it. And for me, it was the indication how fast the professional blindness can enter from one moment to another. And he added to that post image created by AI additionally. So it was quite interesting. So I think that maybe not the young ones, but maybe the older ones are very, very easy target for AI.
Then, Michael, if AI is free, so if logistics is going to be AI based, maybe logistics will also be free.
I will tell him. I'm not sure if he will like it.
I would say that an omnibus may be for all, but you still have to pay to ride on it. And anything which is offered for free, there's a price to pay. It's just usually a hidden price.
The Japanese say everything for free have the highest price. No, for everything for free, you have to pay the highest price. This was the proverb in Japanese.
When, excuse me, when you mentioned AI and how Omnibus conversation came around to talk about AI, I laughed because AI is just a shiny object. AI is just what people like to talk about. It's the subject of du jour, the subject of the day, and everybody feels like they need to talk about AI. A year ago, it was driverless cars. Everybody had to talk about driverless cars, and they're just the shiny object. What's important about the shiny objects is not themselves, but it is the ripple effects, what it causes, and then the ripple effects on the ripple effects, and so on until you have a ripple effect string. And at the end of every ripple effect string is an ethics and governance discussion. So what? And in fact, we jumped. AI was just started to be talked about a year ago. I know people have been working in the background, but the man on the street was talking about AI. When did that start? A year ago, something like that.
After
But already
COVID,
we're talking
generally.
about
So
the
after
ethics.
COVID started to boost up the discussion about such a tool.
Yeah. And already we're talking about the ethics and whether or not we should govern, the governance surrounding these ethics and so on. So I think we've gotten into it rather quickly as compared to other shiny objects that have captured our attention. But I don't want this conversation to get hijacked by AI.
Let's go
AI
back
is
to the
hijacking.
omnibus. Let's go back to the omnibus because it was interesting that Kevin mentioned that it was another name for bus. And in Czech Republic, even today we use the term omnibus, but for a small bus. So for this 10 people or something like that, this is what we call omnibus.
So, I think that we've talked about my wife's experience with buses in Minsk.
Yes, last time.
And how it was a community. She called it the trolley bus. And there were 4 or 5 different versions. They ran on tracks, they ran on wheels, several different, some were just in the inner city, some were just in the outskirts of the city, and so on. But it was a community in there, and you, after a while, got to recognize the other people in there. So when I hear the word omnibus, again, I think of community, and how, I hate the word should. I don't like to use the word should. Either it is or it isn't. But all of us should be like a trolley bus, an omnibus, sharing, riding together. We're all in this bus together, right? Sorry.
What is interesting that is for your wife, or maybe you misunderstood it, because in Czech Republic, trolley is the part which connects with the wire. So this is trolley bus. Bus has not this wire connection, but a trolley bus can go for limited distance without the electricity. It has a secondary engine, let's call it. So we have trolley buses, trams, and buses. There are 3 different type of transportation. And what is interesting, despite the fact that trolley bus is being produced here for 100 years already, Škoda and other factories, there are only 3 cities in Czech Republic which use trolley buses. Prague, Pilsen, and Ostrava. Maybe Brno, I'm not sure. 3 or 4 cities, but no more.
It's interesting. Yesterday, my wife traveled from Moscow to Kolomna, which is about 100 miles south of Moscow. And I said automatically, what time is your train? And she said, I'm taking the bus. And I couldn't help laughing. And she said, it's so much easier to take the bus. You don't have to go to the main railway station. There's plenty of places where you can catch the bus. And it stops in the best part of town. And it may take half an hour longer, but she said it's really an enjoyable journey.
When I travel, bus station is closer to me, but on a unicycle, I don't care. So, but the train station is not so far, so I can be there in 5 or in 7 minutes. So it's the same, but I choose on convenience. So convenience, exactly like your wife. The price is almost the same. Train even is more expensive than a bus, especially the private buses, which are riding in here. And they are right now, they start to test almost double the length the bus. So there has been standard buses, then 2 connected, and they are testing right now from the airport 3 connected. So it's you remember for sure it was, I think, the US movie Superbus or something like that, ever huge bus, and then he was falling in some whatever. So it was a catastrophic movie from the 70s, I think. So it was called Superbus or something like that, and the people eat people. And I don't remember, I was too small, but it was quite interesting at the time. So to see such a huge buses. And I have seen today a form of omnibus in the sky. There is a very interesting development in spaceships, which can do very similar than the buses. It's generally almost as fast as a train, not a speed train, but as a train. Much more convenient, so low emissions and so on and so on. So it's quite interesting development. So maybe the future omnibuses will be airships as well.
It's quite interesting that the company Airbus decided to call the company Airbus, but also their products are just Airbuses to make, just to bring them down to earth. I think it's a very nice touch.
The very opposite thing is, which I do not understand, why they call flying cars when these cars have no wheels. They are just big drones, but they have no wheels. And they call it flying cars, which I think is the very opposite. They are trying to connect it to the earth, but in fact it's stupid.
But if you think about it, we still catch airplanes from airports. We still have spaceships. It's kind of, in a way, it's nice. We look backwards, not forwards.
You know the movement, I don't know how it's called in English generally. They draw the modern technology into all the way, like everywhere, screws and so on, but it's flying. It's part of the science fiction movement. It's generally this type of movement, which is beautiful. The people dress in an old way, but so it's I like it. And we have one movie maker I can share with you. He's not living anymore, and he made black and white films, many of those out of Jules Verne movies. That was so beautiful that I think that even until today, the tricks and everything, they do not reach his skills to make it black and white in such a drawing style, but it's really great. I will share with you some because he made as well the trip into the time of dinosaurs, where 3 boys travel through time, and it's really unbelievable. As a kid, I was fascinated by that.
I heard an interesting expression just yesterday, actually. It was instead of describing somebody who travels in space, an astronaut or a cosmonaut. They called them spacefarers, which I thought was an extremely nice expression. You know, you have seafarers and you have spacefarers.
Do you know that the Japanese are preparing to launch first satellite made of wood?
Really?
Yes, I can share it with you. It's almost finished, and it's a really wooden-made satellite. Cherry wood or something like that. I do not remember.
How does it keep from burning up?
You know, they don't care because they need to put it on the orbit, and it will be protected in a rocket. And they are happy that it will not fall down because it will burn out. So the Japanese are right now starting the Japanese Association for Space, I don't know how they are called. They are prepared. They tried twice already a project to get the space junk out of the orbit. One was a string, it was not successful. And the second one, I do not remember, it was not successful as well. So right now they are launching a satellite, special satellite, to watch the space junk and to collect the information about it for the next collection. So these are two news which came just recently. Last week it came from Japan. I get them, but I will share it with you. So it's quite interesting. And you know what we are right now expressing is the omnibus. Exactly. We are three sitting in a very different location, speaking about very different topics, and still we are on the same direction. That's the great part about it. I think this is the image for me from now, the image of omnibus.
And I think the nice thing about an omnibus is that it's a shared experience. I took once a magic bus from London to Athens, and I think it took 36 hours. And when you get on your 50 strangers, but 36 hours later, you've got 49 new friends. It's quite remarkable how you gel together on a bus.
I do remember the time when there was no tunnel, of course, and we have to travel via the traject. And because it was too expensive to fly to UK, it was in the 90s. I was there as an au pair. So we go by bus. It took about 40 hours to go from Czech Republic to London, something like that. So, and not a single friend. No, it's not right. It's not right. It was quite interesting because it was about 5 years after I finished the secondary school or the college. And I met there at the bus station a friend of mine from the school whom I haven't seen for the 5 years. And she went to make au pair in UK about 40 miles from the place where I was doing au pair. Quite interesting. Quite interesting.
Small world.
Yes. But I think that, Kevin, to establish such a relationship in such a short time, I think the first step must be to break the silos. Your microphone is off.
When you're on a bus for 3 days and 3 nights, the silos get broken fairly quickly. And you know, then you say, well, I'll swap you some water for some food, and do you want some chocolates? Do you want some blah, 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 blah? And then your community becomes 4 seats, then 6 seats. And then when the bus stops, you talk to people you haven't talked to before. It's a very nice way to travel if you have the time.
But this does not happen in a plane. I think for the omnibus to be so successful as you describe is needed exactly the time. The time should not be wasted. So we should be open. We should really break the silo around us, and from the very first moment to start to communicate, not to push, but to be human, I will say. So.
And you think also omnibus, I mean, for all, it must be the most democratic way to travel, if you take the name literally. if the transportation is for all, it's the most shared way to travel. I saw, and then Bill, you'll know more about this than I do. I saw a map of the railway network across the United States, and there's only about 3 lines. It is remarkably, America is just not covered by rail. But when you imagine the romance of travel in America, you think of Greyhound buses in the 50s and 60s.
Well, of course, you're talking about west of the Mississippi.
Yes,
East of the Mississippi, it's spider web of, and I live in the Northeast, and you can't go a mile in any direction without crossing train tracks or interstate highways. It's but I was wondering if the difference between omnibus traveling, as you were describing, Kevin, and traveling by plane is that analogous to what life is becoming or has become, where you can either do things the graceful way, the enjoyable way, or you can rush to get here, get there, and so on. And is it going to become worse so that we're rushing? We're rushing all the time. And then as we get older, we don't have that need to, and maybe we've just come to realize that we don't need to be running all the time. Or is it because we really don't need to be running all the time because the kids are out of the house? We no longer have to be taxi driver and principal provider and so on. But I'm just wondering what it's going to look like in 2050 with all these new inventions and ways to go faster and think up more. And we don't know if the person sitting next to us is a human being or a robot. We don't know what we're reading and what we're looking at is the product of a human being, or it's AI generated or something. So I'm kind of in this place where I now have a better understanding for Omnibus. You have more experience with it, and I just find it so attractive to have this experience, or to think of going through life at an enjoyable pace, and thinking about doing things that we want to do instead of doing things that we have to do.
It's true. And
Yes, you, Kevin.
I was just going to say that this saying that life is a journey, not a destination, it's the same with travel. It's a part of travel is the journey. And if you look at the damage that current air travel does to the planet, we cannot be flying the way we do now in 30 years' time. There has to be an alternative, or we simply have to slow down. And then we have to make more of the travel as an experience rather than an inconvenience.
And I think perhaps that's the direction that we're headed in, with the 4-day work week. There will at some point be 3-day work week, and then where do we get our sense of purpose from? If we're no longer getting our sense of purpose from our jobs, and robots are doing many of the many of the jobs, so we have time to be searching for our purpose or to be enjoying the train ride.
For me, it will be interesting because if the people on the omnibus can make a society which can talk and discuss everything, will they be able to agree on a direction of the omnibus? I am asking because there was, I think, Finnish or Danish company, I'm not sure, one air operator announced last week, on Friday, I think, they announced that they will start a new service, unknown destination. Have you heard about it, Kevin? You came to the airport on Friday between whatever. You will get a ticket. You don't know where you will fly. And for 3 days, you will fly there. And they said it's already booked. I think it should be in March or so. And they said it's already booked. People are so interested to go somewhere for 3 days, and they don't care where. It's quite interesting concept, you know. And it was, in the article, it said that I think Lufthansa or someone tested similar few years ago, and it was successful as well. So, but the question is, if the people can unite in a way they can discuss and so on, will they be able to unite in a direction in which the omnibus will be heading?
I love that question. In my experience, you know, conventional wisdom would say, no, just be arguing. And but I belong to a Facebook group. It's a Facebook group that all share the same disease. And I have been a member of that group for 10 years, probably longer. It used to be a Yahoo group before Yahoo stopped. But
it exists. It still exists.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are 3,000 members of this group, and they, number one, never mention politics. Period. Never. There's no rules against it, but they never do. So they have a direction. Don't fully know what that direction is because we are discovering it as we go along, but there's never any arguing. So it is possible.
What do you think, Kevin? Your mic.
I think the fact is that we're all on the bus and we've all chosen to take the most democratic form of transportation means that we're open for discussion and suggestion and cooperation. So I like to think that we would be able to come to consensus because there's not a jet setter amongst us who wants to get there quicker.
That's quite interesting because we are coming to the reason why the people who are the jet setters and politicians never ride on bus. Because they do not want to represent our decision. They would like to represent their own direction and decision and whatever power, whatever. It doesn't matter how we call it. So this is quite interesting, you know, very interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You never see a politician on an omnibus because it is, it's for all, but not for them. They are not all. They are not for all. They are for themselves.
Because they are too important. They have to get there faster because their time is more important than our time. But they're just too important.
But at the same time, and I think it's in US and other countries are the same, during or before elections, the buses they hire bus. And on every bus must be their sign, of course, vote me, not the other guy. So they simply hijacked the bus or the omnibus for their own purpose. I don't know whether you have seen the president of Argentina, I think, this crazy guy.
Yes.
How he rides with other people and ride with other people. And just yesterday, I have learned that he is for how long he is in a charge? For a short time. And he already turned the country debt, the national debt, into surplus. for the first time in, I don't know, 30 years. That's unbelievable. Of course, it's unpleasant for many, but for majority of the people, it is a great direction.
But I think also, Michael, the fact is that politicians take buses when they have to meet ordinary people. They know where they are.
You are right.
And when they're forced to take a bus, then they can do it.
Once again, so interesting discussion, you know. Already last time, Bill says, what can we say? Why do we need 40 minutes for a bus? And at the end, we said, it was so short, we need another 40 minutes maybe. And today we have 6 minutes left. So, you know, it's so fast. And I think it is very interesting because we came to several very interesting topics that the people on an omnibus has to have something in common, because this will help them to communicate. They have to break down the silos. It's another way. They will never meet someone who will push just for him or her, because so they can even agree on the direction. And this is exactly what should happen right now. You know, few hours, few minutes probably before the start of this talk, there was a post by whoever, Czech Environmental Association, and many. So they signed a letter, and all of them refused to communicate with me in the past. So Greenpeace and the others. So and I asked them, and they asked in the letter for better future, we can say. And I asked them, well, when will you start to implement what you say? And nobody is answering. You know, they keep silent, completely silent. That's so obvious. They do not want the change. They want to keep their jobs or their roles and the money they get and the funds and everything. Just 2 days ago, there was a strike of the farmers in Czech Republic. Long after all the farmer strikes came, the Czechs. They meet in Prague with their tractors, but they cannot agree what they want. So they meet there and then they left because somebody hijacked their will to come to Prague. And for some of them, it was the first trip to the capital city, you know. With a tractor, it's great. And all of them, and it was different to Germany, all of them clean up the machines. In Germany, and in France especially, they put the dirt and everything on the ministry, not the Czechs. They clean up, they brush every single tractor to shine up in the Prague. I am not sure if this was an omnibus. I don't think so. It was a hijacked one.
There is another version of omnibus, and it's used in publishing. So if you gather all the works of an author, for example, all of William Shakespeare's works together, publish it, it's usually fairly cheap, and it's called an omnibus edition.
Mm-hmm.
So the edition for everybody, the edition for all. It's kind of nice.
Makes sense.
It's quite interesting. And I start to work on the book of questions we already spoke about. So in this book will be only questions, no answers. And I count with you. And something tells me that maybe we will beat the most sold book in the world. So you know it was Bible. And I make a short research. What is interesting that all the most sold books are books related to religion. Oh, I think top 5. And then what is interesting, there are stories. The first one, or the second one, I think is The Little Prince. And the third one is Harry Potter. 200,000, yes, 200,000 copies. Or 200 million, I do not remember, so the numbers are not so important. But huge. So I think second was The Little Prince, and third and fifth and seventh was Harry Potter. So firstly, we have a religion, and then we have stories. Nothing in between. That was interesting. I didn't expect it.
It's nice to know that the book is far from dead. I think that's really encouraging.
So we have 1 more minute left, or 1:40. Bill, anything to say to the end?
I think it's a fascinating concept. I'm glad we could dig into this, and it and I think that's really you said it. This is our talks. Our talks are omnibus discussions.
And you know, we do it for, I think this is a 68th edition already. So, and we have 1 week, so we are 1.5 years already talking this way. It's unbelievable, unbelievable. So, but we came to the end, last minute. I would like to wish everyone have a nice time for your waste and wasting in all its forms. They say free. Join our omnibus. You will see, you will not, you cannot be more happier, because as you can see on Kevin's face, it's a fun on the bus, on the omnibus. And we will see you next week. So have a nice time. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.